Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, yesterday's video I did regarding just a theory on timelines where DAIMA fits got quite a bit of positive feedback in the comments, but also from friends of mine. I just wanted to say that that was just a theory. Obviously, it's not necessarily true that DAIMA fits into GT, so just keep that in mind. This is today a little different. This is what I would call a viewing guide, or my thoughts on the ways to view the show. I've given my thoughts on why I believe you should watch the show in this way in the past, but we're going to start off with the English side of things. Now, Dragon Ball is where everyone should start. This is the beginning of the show. This is where everything starts in the books and in the TV series. And this is where anyone who is interested in Dragon Ball should view the show. In my opinion, if you have not seen Dragon Ball, you are doing yourself a disservice as a fan of the series, and you need to go back and watch it. Dragon Ball Z Kai. Now, the reason I put Kai there and not Z for the English dub is obviously Dragon Ball Z is not a great dub. The music doesn't fit the tone of the show, and not to mention the fact that the voice acting is quite terrible. There's a lot of what's called dubisms where they make dialogue up. They give characters fake names, such as Guru when he is just called the Grand Elder, and things like the higher dragon being called Icarus. So there's just a lot of fake lines put into the show. Power scaling lines even, such as the Supreme Kai stating that the Supreme Kais were all 1,000 times stronger than Frieza, when the original line is that they could all defeat Frieza in a single blow. So you get the gist of where I'm going with this. Chris Sabat and Sean Shebel have both come out and said Kai is also the definitive English dub in terms of voice acting quality. So I would never put Z in English over Dragon Ball Z Kai. Now you can see there I've branched it off into 3 separate timelines as well. Obviously, DAIMA is supposed to be a prequel to Super. It does acknowledge the different universes and the Supreme Kais from the different universes and the fact they all derive from the Demon Realm. So Rimus left the Demon Realm, created the different universes, and the Supreme Kais were then formed. Now, pardon me, I've got the top viewing, which you could have Dragon Ball Z Kai, Dragon Ball DAIMA. You could then choose to watch Battle of Gods or Resurrection of F, or you could watch Dragon Ball Super. You could watch Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F and then go straight into Super during the God of Destruction Champa arc, or you could just watch Super and ignore Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F. After Super, you can then watch Broly and Superhero. That's the only continuity we have for the anime post Dragon Ball Super. Obviously, the books are different. Now, down below you can also see I've created a timeline where you can just ignore DAIMA and watch Super if you can't deal with the plot holes. Obviously in future we could see that Super Saiyan 4 is explained into the Super continuity with the manga, remembering the manga is the only canon and that the manga will have its own continuity for Dragon Ball Super. Now Dragon Ball Super may make up a line where Goku could only access the form through Never's magic, or perhaps he can only access the form in the Demon Realm. We don't know at this stage. It's not necessarily a plot hole, even though I just called it that. I guess it's just something that hasn't yet been explained, and it will be explained. We have 2 reasons. The obvious one, Goku can't access the form because in Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball DAIMA had not yet been created in the real world. In universe though, we're going to have to say that Goku can't access the form due to the magic wearing off. That's what I think is the most likely candidate. In the anime, Goku explains in the Dragon Ball DAIMA anime that he couldn't access Super Saiyan 4, but what he does say is that he had been training to access something new. So it's not necessarily true that Goku had access to Super Saiyan 4 or knew about Super Saiyan 4. What he's hinting at the end of DAIMA in its last episode is that he thinks there was something above Super Saiyan 3 or beyond that, and that's what he was training to achieve. Vegeta saying, "Were you hiding Super Saiyan 4 from me?" I think more plays into Vegeta's insecurity. He had just obtained Super Saiyan 3 recently, and he's probably a little jealous that Goku has a new form. Albeit, I don't think this is a form that Goku can tap into at will, so I really don't think that Goku hasn't automatically jumped ahead of Vegeta again. That's my opinion. Now, the other side here, we've got Japanese. Now, the Japanese sub or the Japanese dub, I basically have put there that you could also view this as 3 different continuities. Now, you can look at the Japanese dub the same way the English dub is, in terms of Dragon Ball going into Z, then going into DAIMA, and then going into Super. I'm just showing you that there's different ways to watch the show. This is called a viewing guide at the end of the day. You could watch Ball, Z, then GT. You could watch Ball, Z, and then DAIMA. Or you could watch Ball, Z, and then Super. You don't have to acknowledge all 3 of them together. They can all be separate continuities. That is also a possibility. Everyone is obviously going to lean towards watching Ball, Z, DAIMA, and then Super. That's going to be the most obvious way people are going to watch the show. Now, the movies are the self-contained timeline. Obviously, there's elements of GT that are in the movies, or vice versa. Goku uses the Ryoken or Dragon Fist in GT, and he also uses other techniques that we've seen unique to GT that aren't seen in any other form of anime. Now, the 10 times Kamehameha, for example, only appears in GT, but the Ryoken or the Dragon Fist appears in GT and appears in the movies. Cooler is also in Dragon Ball GT. In the Super 17 arc, he escapes from hell. He is seen on screen in GT. But I still put the movies in their own self-contained timeline. You can argue, I guess, that the first Dragon Ball Z movie with Garlic Jr. could fit into the Dragon Ball Z timeline, and there is a Garlic Jr. arc. This is what's called a filler arc, which is why many people choose to watch Dragon Ball Kai, because Dragon Ball Kai, if you want the canon argument, is the most faithful to the manga. You could watch Dragon Ball, then Dragon Ball Z Kai, and then watch DAIMA or Super, or watch them both together and acknowledge them as one continuity, if you're that way inclined and you only care about quote-unquote canon. This is how I view the series. Everything you see on screen here is canon. They all branch off in different directions and flow off in different timelines. That's just the way I view it. As I mentioned yesterday, every single franchise here you see on the screen contradicts each other. I mentioned that Battle of Gods, Beerus has a line where he states he's using 70% of his power. That does not fit into Dragon Ball Super. The 291 episode airing of Dragon Ball Z. That does not line up with Dragon Ball Super Broly, because during that broadcast there was a TV special which fits into the broadcast, which was the Bardock special. That TV special is contradicted by Dragon Ball Super Broly and the events that take place there. So anything here, whether it be the movies, GT, DAIMA, Super contradicts its own manga. As I said, the manga is the only official canon. The original volumes of the Dragon Ball manga, and then maybe the Super manga. I've always argued that the anime canon continuity is pick your own poison, you choose what you watch, okay? This is my viewing guide. This is how I view things. If I was going to watch it in English, I would probably watch Dragon Ball Z Kai, Dragon Ball DAIMA, and then Dragon Ball Super, or I would start with Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F prior to going into Super. That's the way I would view it in English. In Japanese, I would probably view it as 3 separate continuities and just enjoy all of them. I don't put GT in English. You've probably picked up on that. If it's a bad dub, I don't encourage people watching it in English, okay? It's well known that Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT, as well as the movies really, don't have the best voice acting. There's a lot of dubisms. GT, for example, Braz changed to Bulla. That's a censor change. You've also got the fact that all the dragons, instead of just being called the 1-star dragon, the 2-star dragon, so on and so forth, are called Shinshenron, and so on and so forth. There's made up names. So there is a lot wrong with GT as well, not to mention the Mark Menzer score does not suit the show at all. Yes, you can watch it with the original Japanese score, but there's just too many changes in GT for me to recommend it in English. I would only recommend it in Japanese. Now, I don't mind how you watch the show. As I keep saying, it's just a viewing guide for people who might be wanting to watch parts of the series they haven't seen, or might be wanting ways to justify this in their head of how DAIMA fits into the timeline. You can view it as a separate continuity altogether, which is what I've put down the bottom with the Japanese viewing, or you can view it in the English side as a part of the Super lore, where it just branches off into the same timeline as Dragon Ball Super. Really, there's no wrong way to view Dragon Ball at the end of the day. It's your way to watch it. You pick how you want to watch it, and as long as you enjoy the show, I begrudge no one of that. I just keep thinking of the arguments going on in the community at the moment, and it's really disappointing. It's no one's fault that people are confused. It's no one's fault that people argue this is canon and that's not canon. At the end of the day, that's a reflection on Dragon Ball and how it was released in Japan, and the way that they don't really care about connecting the dots. They don't care about things lining up in Japan. That's just the way it is. So I make this viewing guide so you can kind of look at it and go, okay, that makes a little more sense now. That's all this is. This is how I would view it. I made a video yesterday with GT being a sequel to DAIMA and ignoring the 10-year time skip. You could also view it that way if you wanted to. There's many different ways to view it. As we know in GT, Goku never met the God of Destruction, and he never had God Ki introduced to him. So it's kind of like a what if scenario. If you went from DAIMA into GT, well, what if Beerus never woke up? What if God Ki was never introduced to the main cast of Dragon Ball? GT could then take place. The whole Kibito Kai incident where Kibito and Shin are unfused in DAIMA and then refused in Super at the start, it's the same for GT. So that plot point exists, or that plot hole exists in both GT and DAIMA. But as I said, the way I view the show currently, if I want to be serious about it and not come up with theories, is 3 separate continuities. Until we get some official new statement from Toei or Shueisha with the manga creating a new chapter and Super Saiyan 4 gets introduced in the Dragon Ball Super manga, or we get a season 2 of DAIMA, which I don't think is going to happen. I stated that yesterday. It's hard to fit DAIMA into the Super timeline. However, like I said at the start of the video, you could easily just justify it by saying Goku does not have access to that magic anymore, so he cannot access Super Saiyan 4. It obviously begs the question though, on King Kai's planet, when Beerus asked him, can you transform any further? This is in the manga, which again, it's not in the anime, so DAIMA could just be an anime-only prequel to Super. It still raises questions though. You know, Beerus asked him in the manga, is Super Saiyan 3 your strongest form? And Goku basically said yes. So there is plot holes against Dragon Ball DAIMA being a prequel to Dragon Ball Super. But that doesn't mean you can't make it fit with your own headcanon. You know, the magic's worn off, so Goku knew he no longer had access to the form. Or maybe it can't be accessed unless he returns to the demon realm. Who knows? These are theories, and until we get concrete answers from official sources, this is where we're left. So if you want my honest opinion of how I would view it, it's 3 different continuities. But if you want to fit DAIMA into GT, or if you want to fit DAIMA into Super, like I said yesterday, pick your poison. It's your choice. I officially, as it stands, view them as 3 separate continuities. Okay? I still think Vegeta personally had Super Saiyan 3 and Super, even though, you know, he never uses it. Even before DAIMA was released, I was always of the opinion Vegeta had it, he just never used it. So the whole Vegeta having Super Saiyan 3 in DAIMA, it's not really a plot point for me that goes against Dragon Ball Super. We've seen in the Kakarot DLC that Vegeta's Super Saiyan 2 form was able to match Goku's Super Saiyan 3. We've also seen in the Dragon Ball Super manga that Trunks' Super Saiyan 2 form was able to match Goku's Super Saiyan 3. So it's not too far-fetched to think after DAIMA, Vegeta just didn't care for using Super Saiyan 3 anymore. Or Ultra Vegeta 1 as he called it. Now, I would love to hear down below in the comment section, I'm trying to create positive engagement around this, not negativity. How do you view the show? What way would you view the show now that DAIMA's come out? Do you view it as 3 separate continuities like I've shown down below with the Dragon Ball, the Japanese side, with Dragon Ball Z, GT, Super, and DAIMA all being 3 different continuities? Or do you watch it in English? Do you like the Kai dub? Would you consider watching Dragon Ball Z Kai, and then Super and DAIMA separately? Or do you consider it, as I've got up the top, Dragon Ball Z Kai, DAIMA, and Super all one timeline, with Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F branching off as an alternate version of the anime? Love to hear your thoughts down below. Please share this video, please subscribe. Again, let's create positivity around the Dragon Ball universe and the lore, all these new things we've got. I was very negative about the episode yesterday, but that's fine. You're allowed to react to things. You're allowed to have your initial thoughts. But like I said, I've absorbed the information, I've moved on. Dragon Ball DAIMA is here. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It can't be ignored. It's an official licensed product, just as GT is. So we get to enjoy more Dragon Ball, and that's what we have to be thankful of. So please, like I said, spread the message. Enjoy the show the way you like to watch it. And tell me down below, how do you watch Dragon Ball?